Hello everyone and welcome to Thank Dog We Made It. Today we're going to go through some DIY festive dog coat hacks that you can make to make a beautiful festive coat for your dog that's both cute and easy for them to wear, and something that's actually functional that you can wear out on nasty weather days. And today I'm looking out the window. It is nasty. I live in Vancouver, BC, and it is nasty here, I have to tell you. So you might be interested in how to hack a pattern, and I have the free cozy coat pattern that I'm going to use as an example. And this allows you to get some ideas on how to just change that pattern up with fabric, with bow ties, skirts, hoods, different things to add to it as embellishments that make it festive. And just some really simple things. These are just simple things that you can build really quickly. And some of them are even detachable, so you could take them off if you don't want to have such a festive flair to it. One of the things that I do want to talk about is just the different types of fabrics that you could use. And as I said, different ideas for appliques and things like that that would allow you to do just a little extra flair. So let's jump into it. I'm going to transition into the slides that I have for you here. And I'm just on the wrong slide, so let's go back right to the beginning. Okay, so as I said, we're going to do a quick overview of some DIY festive dog coat ideas. So sew it, hack it, and make it yours. The first one I want to touch on is the red plaid coat with Sherpa collar and a leather belt. So these are really simple things. If you take my cozy coat pattern, it's just basically exactly the same as this. You just add a Sherpa collar instead of a regular pattern, the regular fabric that you use for the coat. And then the coat itself is just made out of a nice, very festive fabric. I've chosen one here that's a red and green plaid. Plaids are always great for festive flair, and a really simple way of just creating a coat that has a really nice kind of fancy look to it, but also super functional. If you do this out of wool is naturally a weatherproof, it's not waterproof, but it's weather resistant. So it makes for a really great coat. If you are making this for a dog that has double fur, like if they are a warmer dog, they don't really need that extra, I would do this in a much lighter fabric, something like a plaid cotton even. And you can wax that to make it waterproof. Things that you can add to the coats to just make them a little bit more your own flair. You can add belts to them or a bow tie. In this one here, I've added a really fancy little bow and a belt to it. The next one I want to show you is the red wool coat, and this is done out of a nice wool. I've used a little plaid, a nice festive kind of plaid, to just embellish the coat by adding a different collar. And as you can see, this collar is a little bit different than the one on the other coat because it folds down and it has points to it. So again, just a simple change up here on the coat collar itself, but it does really change the look of the pattern. And then embellishments. I've added a belt here. It's got a nice brass buckle, and I've added a bow tie to it. So really simple changes to just make this a very different and festive looking fun coat. The next coat I want to talk about is this is very similar to, this is basically my Cottage Comforts coat, which I've talked about before. It's done out of a red checked flannel, and I added Sherpa to the collar. And on this particular one, just to add a little bit of festive flair to it, I've added a belt and a bow, and that's it. That just is all you really need to just kind of one up, or just up that up the flair, up the design to the coat. The next one I want to look at here is this one is red wool. And again, I've used Sherpa on the collar. I've also put Sherpa around the trim. So that adds a little bit of an extra kind of fun flair to it. And again, all I've done is added a belt to it and a bow. And that just adds a little bit of extra Christmas kind of festive flair to it. You could also add buttons here instead of a belt. You could add pom-poms instead of a bow. You could trim the edge with a little string. You can get those little strings of pom-poms. You could trim your edge here with pom-poms instead. All sorts of different things that just make it really fun. You could also do a faux fur collar here instead of Sherpa, and that gives it a really nice kind of Christmassy, festive look as well. This one I've added a skirt to. So I've done a red flannel coat and I've added plaid collar. So I've just changed up the collar so that it's done in plaid instead of the same coat color. And then I've added a skirt. So I'm going to go into how to add a skirt, really simple instructions on how to add a skirt in a couple of minutes. But I just wanted to show you that again, just all I've done is this is my cozy coat pattern, the really simple pattern. But what I've done is I've cut it off just below where the belly wrap portion is. And then I've added a skirt to it. So again, I'll show you how to, just really brief instructions on how you can add a skirt to the coat, but that just adds a little flair to it. And this particular one, I've done a two-tone, so I've done a little bit of the same fabric that I've done the body in, and I've added plaid to it. And I've also added a belt, and I like adding a belt when you're adding a skirt on because what it does is it creates a nice transition between the two sections. And it also covers up the seam between those two sections. So adding a belt on is just a really nice kind of finishing to that coat. The last one I want to talk about is adding a hood, which is really simple to do. Instead of adding the collar, you'd add a hood to the coat. You can line it with fur, trim it, just trim, not even lined, but just to add a little trim to it if you'd like. And again, I've added a skirt here, but the other thing that I want to talk about is adding on a little applique. So an applique is simply just some material that you've cut out, and then you're just sewing around the edges and adding that on top of the fabric. And it adds just a really fun kind of flair to the coat. And it's super simple to sew on. It's really, really simple. You just simply cut it out and sew around the edges. So some ideas that you might use for that are like holly and berries, like I've done here, or you could add a snowflake or a Christmas tree. And I would suggest that you'd want to make these out of some fabric that's got a little bit more weight to it. So things like wool or flannel or even corduroy. And the plaid, often the plaid fabric can be a thicker fabric as well. So you could even do something in the plaid. And so, as I said earlier, I wanted to just give you some really simple instructions for how you could add on some of these features. This one is how you'd add on a skirt. So there are sort of basic ratios that you want to look at when you are adding a skirt to something. If you want something that just has a really light kind of gather to it, it's just a little bit of a ripple on it, it just adds a little extra to it, then you'd go about 1.5 times the width of the back. So on the cozy coat pattern, you've cut it off just below where the belly wrap is, and you take that measurement of the width where you've cut that off, and then for your fabric that you'd add that's to the skirt, you'd do that to the fullness that you want. So as I said, for a light gather is 1.5 times the fullness. If you want something that's sort of a standard kind of ruffle, then 2 times. If you want something that's fuller, then a 2.5 times, or if you want a really kind of dramatic, really full ruffle, then you could go all the way up to 3 times the width of that back measurement. So I would recommend something, if you want something that looks kind of like this skirt that I've got here on the coat, I would recommend doing something around 2.5 to 3 times the width of the back panel. And you're going to cut the length of that, where it goes from the back to the end, where it goes down to where the tail is. You're going to cut that to the length that you want it to be. So this is a great idea too if you are customizing a coat that doesn't, like if you're customizing the pattern, but it doesn't quite fit the length of your dog back, then you can customize it by adding a skirt on, and you simply make the length of that skirt as long as you need it to cover the rest of the dog's back. So this is a really great idea to simply change the customization of the length on the coat as well. So just some really simple construction notes here. Again, you're going to cut out your fabric. If you want it to be a single layer, then you just cut out one piece. And if you want it to be a double layer, you could cut out 2 identical pieces. You'd finish the bottom edge, so you can hem that or you can serge it. Or again, if you have double layered, then you'd sew those 2 together, right sides together. And then you're simply going to gather it all along the top edge. And so it comes to the same width that the bottom of your coat panel is. So you're going to gather it all up, and you want to make sure that it's all kind of evenly spaced out, that all the gathers are spaced properly. And then you can pin that to the bottom edge of the coat. And you can do that right sides together, or you can do it just one on top of the other. If you do it right sides together, it does make a bit of a thicker hem on it. But if you do it just simply one on top of the other, you can sew it together. It's not as thick that way. And then you can add a belt, as I mentioned before. If you add a nice belt around this section where these 2 pieces join each other, it covers up that that edge of that seam. So it makes it a really nice kind of finished piece. And you don't have to sew it right sides together, which makes it also a little bit thinner, which is nice. Okay, the next one I want to talk about is how to add a bow tie. So it's such a simple thing. And you can put this bow tie to be a clip-on if you want. So you could have a little clip on it that snaps to the coat, or you can do it by Velcro. So that's a nice way of adding a little extra flair that you can take on or put on or take off, depending on what you feel like. So to make a bow tie, the basic formula is that you're going to cut 2 rectangles that are about double the size of your finished height and double the finished width. So for an example, if I want to do a bow tie that's going to be 5 inches wide and 3 inches deep, then I would cut a rectangle that's double that. So it's 10 inches wide by 6 inches deep. I'd sew around all the sides, leaving a little gap so that I can turn it inside out. Then I'd turn it, and then I'd press it so that all the seams are nice and flat. Then you're going to just simply fold the 2 edges of the bow back on themselves so that the seams are now joined at the center of the bow tie. And then you just pinch it together so that it gathers really nicely. Pin it so that it's nicely held together, or you can stitch it closed. I would pin it first and then I would stitch it closed. And then you can just create a really simple center knot that wraps around that gathered area to tuck in and hide those seams where you're joining them together. And again, if you want to just have this as something that you can take on or take off or put on whenever you feel like it, then add a little piece of Velcro directly to the coat and to the back of the bow, and you can just simply Velcro it on, or you can add a little dome there, a little snap that just snaps it right onto the coat. So really simple way of dressing up a nice coat look, and something that you can take on or take off depending on what you feel like. The next one, oops, went too fast. So the other one, sorry, I'm on the right one. The next one I just want to touch on is how to make a big ribbon bow, which really adds a nice little fancy flair particularly to a girl's coat. So the formula here is the same as you just did with the bow tie. You're going to cut a rectangle that is 2 times the finished width and 2 times the finished height. And so for an example, if I had a finished bow that was going to be 5 inches wide and 3 inches deep, I would cut a rectangle that is 10 times, twice that, so 10 times 10 inches by 6 inches. And you're going to cut 2 of these. So you're going to cut 2 rectangles that are that size. Then you're going to sew the tails. The tail portion of your bow are actually sewed separately. And this is how you get a really nice flat bow. I don't know if you're anything like me. I cannot sew a bow, I can't fold a bow so that it sits flat for the life of me. I have a friend who does gift baskets for a business, and she makes beautiful bows, and she tried to teach me once, and I was a complete write-off. I could not do it. So this trick allows you to get that really nice flat bow portion, the part that's up top, and then flat tails that stick down below. So for the tail portion, if you want to do about 1.5 times the finished bow width and about 3 to 4 inches of the height that you want. 3.5 to 4 inches for the medium bow, I would suggest. So if I was going to create one that is for a finished bow of 5 inches, I would do tails that are 7.5 inches by 3.5 to 4 inches. And then just the simple construction notes here. You're going to cut 2 rectangles that are the size that you've decided, and you're going to sew the right sides together, leaving a little gap so that you can turn them out, and then turn it and then press it. And then you're going to stack the bows on top of the tails. So you've got your bow that you've already created, and then you've got your tails. So you've got 2 of these. I didn't quite explain that, but you've got the 2 rectangles. You're going to fold them in half, sew them together, turn them, press them, and then you're going to make another one that's identical to that. And then you're going to take that bow portion that you created already and layer it on top of your 2 ribbons, and then you create a center knot, just 1 piece of fabric, and you wrap it around both the bow section and the tail section, and it holds everything together, and then you just stitch it. And you just finish it off by a few stitches to hold everything in place. Again, you can do this by adding a piece of Velcro that just Velcros it to the top of the coat or the back of the coat or the belt or wherever. You could put it on the collar area, wherever you might want to add that bow. You can Velcro on it on, or again, you could snap it on with just some snaps or something like that. So that's it for the ideas of the coat and things that you can do to change up your coat to different festive kind of looks and feels. And what I've got is in the description down below this video, you'll see that I've got a free cozy coat pattern. So you can use this pattern. It's a download. It's got the pattern. It's got instructions on how to sew the whole thing, how to cut it. It also has videos, links to videos that show you step by step on how to make that pattern. It also tells you how to customize that pattern if you want to change up the size so it fits your dog better. So that's a free pattern download, and you can get the description, or you can get the link down in the description below. And the other thing that I have, if you're interested, is the Hack Your Pattern course, which ties in perfectly with what we talked about today. And I cover in a lot more detail how to do these kind of embellishments, how to add a hood, how to measure that hood and make sure it fits the jacket itself, how to attach it, how to make a lined hood if you'd like it lined, or just plain if you want it plain, how to add a skirt, how to add these bows and ribbons, the bow ties, the ribbons, bows, all those kind of things are all inside this course. Plus, I talk about different fabric choices that you can choose, different hardware that you can choose to add a little embellishment. So you can add brass hardware, you can add buttons, you can add rivets, all sorts of different things that really change up the look and feel of your coat. And this is a great course if you really want to dive into this and you really want to start making these cozy coat fabrics, these cozy coat patterns, I should say, if you really want to make them your own. This is a fantastic course that just walks you through it step by step and gives you all sorts of ideas. So I think that I will finish now. This is all I wanted to touch on by now. Check out the description down below for those links that I talked about for the course, the free Cozy Coat pattern package that's got the pattern, free download for the pattern, plus all the instructions on how to customize it to fit your dog perfectly. Also instructions on how to measure your dog. So if you haven't even figured out how to measure your dog, it's going to teach you how to do that too. And it's got links to all sorts of videos that teach you step by step on how to put that coat together. And then the other link that I talk about is the Hack Your Pattern course, which is also down below. And this is a deeper dive into adding in these kind of embellishments and things like that that you want to add in to finish off the coat. So I'm going to wrap up now. If you have any questions, by all means, please do put them down in the comments below, or I'll also add my email below, and you're welcome to email me privately and I will answer your questions. And also, if you have any ideas that you'd like for future shows, please let me know down below too. And be sure to subscribe to this channel and hit the bell so that you get notifications whenever I go live in the future. All right. Thank you very much for joining me on this real quickie today to show you all these different ideas for a DIY festive dog coat hack. Have a great one. We'll see you next week on Thursday at 11 a.m. Pacific time. All right. Bye-bye.